You're awake, the only one on this dark night, the witching hour. The world shrinks till it's just you and your thoughts. You watch the shadows stretch, listening for shifting boards, settling timber, and looming strangers that aren't there. Unfinished conversations, old regrets, and a quiet dread fills your mind, looping on a track as you fail to drift to sleep. You hear it, faint, but echoing through the silence. You may not know where it came from, but you know where it didn't. Not the front door, not the back, but inside the house. You sit up, filled with panic. You slowly climb out of bed, careful of every creak, every bump that escapes your shuffling feet as you head outside, peeking your head outside the crack of the door, slightly, to be safe. Every step verifies it. You're alone. Rooms empty, windows closed. Nothing appears out of place, but that may not matter, because the legends that precede those knocks are far older and far more decisive than you can imagine. The messenger comes first, a bird at the window, a voice calling your name, a frozen clock, or 3 sharp knocks. For thousands of years, people dreaded these omens. But whether you view it as a superstition, a cultural lore, or something unsettling, you can't help but heed the warning of the inevitable. Tonight, we explore death omens. I'm your host, Melissa Nunes, and welcome to Candidly Cryptic, your source for all things strange, spooky, and unexplained.
Premonition is so real, you'll sense it, feel it, see it. Or will you? And all you may have to fear is that you can lose your mind.
Can you predict your own death? According to some folklorists, you can. They've documented death omen traditions across Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas. Whether these warnings involve animals, dreams, strange sounds, or anomalous sights. And despite the vast ocean separating these cultures, they often develop remarkably similar beliefs. People often try to make sense of morality and uncertainty. That's why historian and folklorist Claude Lectoure said that from the desire, death omens were born. The signs may change, the fear does not, that the end is near.
I've been reliably informed that the astrologers are saying that the end of the world is coming next Monday, February the 5th. Should this happen before 8:30 in the evening, it may give us the best panorama yet. Good night.
Raven, crows, owls, and songbirds are all part of the oldest recorded death omens. In Celtic folklore, blackbirds littered the battlefields among the fallen. That's how these carrion crows and ravens became associated with death. And these ravens were frequently linked to the Morrigan, as she assumes their form, appearing before combat, predicting their outcomes and the hero's fate. In parts of Britain and Ireland, if a bird repeatedly struck a window, it was a sign that death was meant to come. And maybe it's all a coincidence, or selective memory, but the belief became so widespread that it still lingers to this day. But there are other warnings, ones you can't see. A whisper, wailing, or howling. Disturbing sounds that plague the Irish, Scottish, and Appalachian people. What if it were a name? Your name being called. Sometimes a familiar voice, and sometimes a stranger, but always when you're alone. Folklorists classify these traditions along banshees, fetches, and spiritual warnings, and the voice is as real as it gets, as if someone stood nearby. Hooves pound the pavement as he traveled horseback along the road. He notices a familiar stranger in passing, not a friend or family, but a reflection of himself, but dressed differently. Years later, he recalled the event. It came back to him as he hacked the same road, wearing the same clothes as his doppelganger. Now, he never mentioned that the event was supernatural. It was, however, one of the strangest experiences of his life. The infamous encounter was from poet and writer Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. In German folklore, doppelganger meant double walker, and more reports appear throughout European folklore and literature. Stories of seeing a double and the death that would soon follow. Danny explores the Overlook Hotel, Pedaling his trike down long, windy corridors, he pauses, 2 girls, identical, standing side by side at the far end of the corridor, quiet and still beneath dim lights, staring back.
Come and play with us, Daddy. Forever and ever and ever.
In The Shining, foreshadowing events warn of violence and death long before they occur. And here, Danny sees the Grady twins, daughters murdered by their father, Delbert, perhaps warning the 5-year-old of what's to come. The bloody elevator, the girls' bodies, violent visions, and the corpse of room 237, all manifestations of the decay that permeated this place, waiting to claim more bodies. Director Stanley Kubrick makes it clear these aren't simple jump scares, they're signs, pieces of the future slowly revealing itself. And historically, many death omens don't come as direct warnings, but as glimpses, prophetic dreams and visions that only become clear once they come to pass. Dreams of funerals, cryptic messages, and unexplained voices, folklorists have recorded centuries of stories surrounding these omens. They're a fragmented mess of images, symbols, or feelings, and exactly what Danny experiences throughout the film. Visions with no explanation, just pieces. This follows the same suit as traditional death omens, who don't know what's going to happen, just that it's on its way. And we too experience the uncertainty as it unfolds. Are these warnings? Memories? Psychic impressions? We never get a clear answer, an unnerving tension that persists even years later. In Final Destination, there's no monster, just fate. A modern death omen story, warnings that consume the cast, figuratively and literally. The dripping faucet, flickering light, or falling object, all seemingly innocuous, but slightly out of place. The tension builds as these minute details build. Everything feels like a message. And like the lore, the death is in the details. The problem is that they're too subtle. Characters race to interpret the warnings before it's too late, much like generations before them, desperate to find the truth behind the ravens, banshees, doppelgangers, and prophetic dreams. But Final Destination addresses one of humanity's oldest fears. What if death announced itself? If you recognize the warning, could you beat death?
Only new life can defeat death.
If it is my time to go and be in heaven with my family, I can accept that. I know what I have to do to save us.
There are no known survivors.
I have to die.
Come on, ready, clear. She's back.
Heavy, weary eyes reluctantly open to not a scream, not exactly, but wailing. A mournful cry carried across fields to your open window. The fire burns low, the house is still, and you sit up to listen. Cries pierce the darkness, grief, raw, incarnate. Closer this time. So you go down the stairs, out the door, and step outside. Moonlight slivers the hedgerows, and the lonely lane opens to silent sweeping fields. And the howling continues, somewhere in the oblivion, rising and falling as the wind allows. Your eyes search the shadows. Where is she? And you look until the sound fades into the night. And the next morning, you hear word from a neighboring parish. A relative had died before dawn. Years later, you remember the cry, never fully understanding it, but knowing that the mourning had begun long before there was a reason to grieve. And that's why no discussion of death omens is complete without the banshee, a cry announcing an impending death. Folklore researcher Patricia Lysat spent decades studying banshee traditions and documented numerous first-hand reports collected across Ireland of witnesses who heard the unearthly wailing before losing a loved one. And the distinction should be made: she doesn't cause death. She is just the messenger. Making her one of the purest examples of an omen, the fear doesn't come from what she might do. It's because of what she knows. The irreversible already in motion. This idea appears throughout modern horror and fantasy, such as the Bean Nye in films, television, and folklore-inspired fiction, as well as the countless ghost stories featuring mournful women whose appearances signal tragedy. Even the Woman in White legends overlap with banshee traditions, combining the grief and prophecy into a single figure. She embodies one of humanity's oldest fears, not just death, but the knowing that it's coming. And whether she's just a story, a coincidence, or collective memory, the retellings all share the same chilling structure. First, the sound, then the sorrow. Some traditions focus on objects, clocks stopping at the hour of death, mirrors cracking unexpectedly, pictures falling from walls. Folklorists documented these stories through Europe and North America. Some traditions even required mirrors to be covered after death, preventing the spirits from becoming trapped. These practices became so frequent, they continued well into the 20th century. So why do death omens continue to haunt us centuries later?
Titanic. Who could forget the movie's epic recreation of the ship sinking in 1912? But remarkably, the story of the Titanic was first told 14 years before the ship left port in this book, almost exactly foretelling the ship's name, the iceberg, and the month of the disaster. How could that be possible?
Researchers studying folklore and belief systems often point to pattern recognition. We naturally search for meaning, especially when grieving or in times of uncertainty. A bird at a window before heading to a funeral. A dream about your grandmother before the loss. A clock stopping during their final breath. Events that link through memory. Humanity's attempts to understand and narrate morality. Not predicting death, but processing it. But what folklorists continue to acknowledge is that the stories never fade. Every generation inherits them and adds some of their own. Raven perched on a fence, a voice calling to you in the dark, a clock stopping at midnight. It happens, and then we are forced to wonder, was that a coincidence or a warning? So next time you hear a knock, notice a bird at the window, or wake from a dream you can't quite explain. Remember the old stories, ones where death is rarely silent. It sends a messenger first. Thanks for tuning in on another episode of Candidly Cryptic. If you enjoy all things strange, spooky, and unexplained, please follow for more.